So I'm going to show you how to do hand coloring of a digital photo in Photoshop Fix. I'm going to first open up Photoshop Fix, and you can see that my former projects, some things that I've just played around with, are all here and all saved. All right. What I want to do is I want to get to a new project. So I am going to go to my plus sign. I'm going to go to recent files, and I am going to look for a photo that I'm going to hand color. I'm going to go to this flower photo here, and the very first thing you want to do for your image is you want to crop it. Make sure that it's visually pleasing, rule of thirds, framing, repetition and variation, some of those things you should be thinking about. My picture, when I took it, I was thinking about the rule of thirds, placing the yellow center of the flower a little bit out of the center, and therefore it looks good to me. The first thing I want to do is I want to desaturate my image. I'm not going to go to color though. I am going to go to my adjustments. You would think you would go to color, but you're going to go to your adjustments, you're going to go to saturation, and you are now going to bring your photo to black and white. You can then also adjust your colors if you want to play around with your exposure, and if you feel that you need to play around with your contrast before you actually recolor this image. Now, when you are done, you will hit the check mark, and what you will need to do is you will need to save this image to your camera roll. Because if you go to the paintbrush and attempt to color right now, it won't let you, because your adjustment, underlined in blue at the bottom, is going to stay desaturated. So I'm going to go to the arrow out of the box up at the top of my screen. I'm going to go to Save to Camera Roll. And now I've done the first step of converting my image to black and white. I will then go back, not to this project, but I'm going to go to my plus sign. I'm going to go to my recents, and here is my black and white photo. So now I have a black and white photo. Notice there is no blue line underneath my adjustments. When I go to the paint, and this is where you're going to have fun. First step is to make sure that at the bottom of your screen, blended is whited out. See where I just checked blended and I rechecked it? Because now what's going to happen when you add color, and I can zoom in on part of my image. So here is my brush size. I can make that smaller or bigger. My hardness level, I can fade in what I'm about to color, or I can have a nice defined line. The opacity, definitely think about your opacity and bringing your opacity down. The reason is now when I go ahead and start to actually color on my image, and let's get that brush size a little bit bigger for me there. When I start to go ahead and color in my image, one thing to know about opacity, all right? Opacity right now is at 36%. If you think of your opacity as kind of like watercolors, look at what happens when I go over an area once. Look at what happens when I go over that area twice, 3 times, 4 times. The color gets more and more intense as I layer color over it. You should always think about having your opacity down at a lower level so that you can build your color. It makes your color look more multidimensional when you're applying your color. And look at, we can actually see the image below when we choose blended. Look at what happens when I uncheck blended. It looks like I'm more so kind of painting over the image. You're going to do that in the second step of what we are going to do. So the first step, and then if I want to go ahead and choose a color, I can pick another color. Here's a great idea too. If I want to save this particular color, all I need to do is hit the plus sign. And now when I go to my library, boom, that gold color that I've been working with is the first color listed. You can save your colors. So remember, you do not have to stick with the colors that were there when you were painting. This is, or when you were actually photographing. This is your opportunity to now have a little artistic liberty with your colors. A couple things you need to think about. The value of a color needs to stay the same. And in fact, you should think of color as value. We know that this flower was not yellow. We know that this flower was not white because the value is too dark to begin with. So as we are choosing colors, and I'm going to go back to my picker here, and I'm going to go to, maybe like a kind of an orange or a reddish color. I can choose to make that color more vibrant or deeper by sliding around at the bottom. If I want to go ahead and make my brush now bigger, because I'm going to color the flower. And the minute you take your finger off is when you are going to start to get some layering of your color. Now, don't worry about it. It's recognizing. So I actually took my finger off, and now you can see I'm adding a different layer on top of that color there. Don't worry. You can always go back and try to, but if you're really trying to do one solid color, you got to make sure that you don't take your finger off the cursor, off the screen when you are doing this. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, he's doing a terrible job. Well, really, all I'm doing is I'm getting the flower. Now, look what happens when I go over that yellow part. It's actually, adding a little red over the yellow, which is now making it orange. We know a little bit about color theory now, correct? So if I want to go ahead and erase that red, go for it. Make your eraser bigger. Get in there, zoom in to what you're doing. If you have a stylus, use a stylus. If you don't have a stylus, don't use a stylus. Use your finger. I'm using my finger right now to go ahead and apply and add these colors. So this is really, again, the best trick to be doing in order to be hand coloring your photo. The first stage is to use blended color. And then next week, we're going to talk about adding color and unblended color on top of our image. When you are done with this stage, getting the whole thing in color, you will then hit the check mark. And again, you will save to your camera roll. All right? You don't have to post anything because we will be doing something with this next week.